Alright, so if you check out the playlist, motorcycle wiring, you'll see some of the crap that I've gone through bringing these old bikes in and fixing them up. I feel like at this point, I want to do just a real brief wiring tutorial. I'm not the GOAT. I ain't the greatest of all time, but I've done this enough that I can make a connection and it'll last. Okay? No more do I want to be seeing bikes in my shop where people are just stripping wires, twisting, and covering them with tape. Cut that shit out. Take your time and do it right. It's not hard. You're going to go over basic equipment, practice, practice, practice. Take your time, biggest thing, and do everything neat. This is really not rocket science. It's not hard to successfully rewire something. This is just an intro level how-to video on how to solder a connection and properly strip wire, because I'm seeing so much crap on some of the bikes people are bringing me, and even this one I just took in on trade. Yeah, we got to go through and redo some stuff somebody already did. So let's go ahead and get started, and we'll talk about the equipment. Alright, this is about as basic as it gets. You don't have to have fancy equipment to solder a decent connection, and I don't have fancy equipment. Now, I picked this up the other day because I was out of soldering paste, and the closest place to me was Harbor Freight's. This little kit is actually pretty cool. You got your flux, also known as soldering paste. You do need this, okay? There are people that will tell you that the rosin cord wire is good enough. It is, but you will get better results with soldering paste. And this comes with a little sponge. We'll get into that. Comes with a little scouring pad. We'll get into that. Next thing you're going to need is a soldering iron. You don't have to go crazy with that. Obviously, if you buy yourself a better, higher quality one, it's going to work better, but this one fits in my stand a little better than this one here. This one's lighted. It's slightly more powerful. Cool thing about this one is you can turn it way down if you're doing fine work like a circuit board. There's kits that you can buy online, yada yada yada. This came with a kit. Get yourself a stand. You're going to keep from burning yourself that way. You're going to keep from starting a fire that way. Okay. Several different types of wire strippers. I like this automatic one. You put the wire in there. Does it for you. Don't worry about size. It has the crimp connects here and a wire cutter. Honestly, I don't use these at all. I solder my connections just because it works better. You need a little bit of tape. Not for what you're thinking. We're not going to tape shit and be all Mickey Mouse about it. We're going to do it proper. You need a good sharp knife, or if you got it, sometimes you can make a little neater, preciser cut with a small razor blade. And some shrink wrap. And any old kind of little lighter will do the job for you. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in, get it hot. And I haven't done this in, oh good lord, about a year now. So I'm going to make a couple of little solder connections and get a feel for it right quick. And I will roll you into exactly what you got to do in the footage in just a minute. Okay, this right here is what I'm talking about when I talk about a soldered connection. That's not coming apart, okay? And these wires are essentially just twisted together. I'm going to show you how to do this. Soldering iron's good and hot, ready to rock and roll. Take your wire strippers. This one, I like how it works. You just do one of them, you're stripped. Twist. Tighten them up like that, okay? We'll take this piece here. Go ahead and strip it. Give them a twist like such. Take your two connections. Now if you want it to be nice and neat, like with a wire nut, or what a lot of people do, they'll twist them like that and then they'll tape it. Well, that's kind of an ugly, not a very neat connection. So You kind of want to take them like such with your fingers. Alright, twist them together like that. See what I got going on there? Okay. You're going to take a little soldering paste. A little coating on there. And remember, like I said, I'm not the freaking goat. Okay? There's the guy who taught me how to do this was the goat. He's no longer on this earth with us. Rest in peace, Chaz. You're the shit. Now, a good way to practice this, let me zoom in a little so you can see real good what I'm doing. You could use a vise. I got just a pair of vice grips here just to hold this. Because ideally you'll be doing this on the vehicle, on the motorcycle, etc. So rather than trying to hold the wires in your hand, we're going to set them up like that and hopefully get these out of the way. I'll get you zoomed in a little better and hopefully you'll be able to see precisely what is going on here. Zoom you in all the way. Now your soldering iron is good and hot, right? You always want to take, while it's sitting in your stand, you always want to take and have a little bit of solder just melted on it like that. Give it something to work on, okay? You don't want to let it sit in there without solder on it because it'll burn up. And I'm sure somebody's looking at this tutorial and laughing at me. As I said, I am not the goat. This is just what a dude showed me a long time ago. This is how I make my connections when I do wiring, and it works for me. You got your high temp sponge here that'll come in your kit. Just go ahead, draw it out to a fine point like that. See what you got there. Now you've cooled it off a little bit, so you're going to have to let it heat back up for just a second. But you have a nice clean tip. Can you see what I'm doing here? I really hope so. Now, you don't melt the solder onto the wire. You use the wire to melt the solder. Feel me? And go ahead and touch it to the wire. You don't want some good ventilation. These fumes ain't that good for you. And you'll see that soldering paste or flux, you'll see that melt away. As it gets hot, you touch the solder to the wire. Trust me, you'll know when you get there. I really hope the camera's going to pick this up. This is not the most powerful soldering iron either. So it will take maybe a minute to warm the wires up enough. You're transferring heat from the iron to the wires. There we go. See that? Notice I'm not touching the iron, I'm just touching the wires. And the solder is melting right down the wires like that. And then before we put your soldering iron back, touch it like that, give it a little bead of solder, just something to work on. Alright. Now look, it is that easy and simple. And now you got a connection that ain't going to come apart. If I can get it in camera for you. Like, I'm yanking hard. That ain't coming apart. Next thing you want to do, you've already soldered it, but now you've got an open wire just hanging out there in the breeze, right? Well, that ain't no good. So this stuff is called shrink wrap. Get you an idea of how much of it you... If I can get it in camera, I guess I'd be doing good, wouldn't I? Get you an idea of how much you need there. And just a little longer than the actual joint. So if the joint's that long, we're going to go about right here. You can use scissors, but that knife's handy, so there it is. Cut you a piece of it off. Now, if you're putting two pieces of wire together, as you're heating the wires, you would already have this on there, but for demonstration purposes, say like this is connected to the stereo of your car or your motorcycle, you're going to have this slid well far back because heat's going to make it shrink. You'll make your connection, and then you'll take it, slide it up over like such. You don't burn it with a lighter at all. That's not what you want to do. You want to use the heat from the flame like such, and just run it back and forth over. See what that heat's doing to it. And there you go. Now you have a proper connection. It's literally that easy to do. I recommend you buy these items. Don't worry about getting the best ones out there. Just get a cheap one. And just take some old scraps of wire like this, and I want you to practice. Practice, practice, practice. Take your time. Now, as far as how to actually wire things and route the wires, that'll be coming later on. But this is just a basic tutorial on how to make a good, safe connection that's going to last years. It's going to be watertight. If you're still worried about it, now is when you would take your electrical tape and tape over it. But if you make a connection like this, I promise you, it's going to last. Just look, I can't pull that apart at all. Okay? And don't put underglow lights on your goddamn bike if you don't know how to do this. Alright, that's the end of the tutorial today. I got some wiring to work on this motorcycle. Hopefully you can see me. The fellow that put the underglow lights, I'm not going to say he did a bad job. I'm going to say he did an extremely sloppy job. So I'm going to actually 86 them. They're gone. And there's a few other connections that someone has rewired a few things on this motorcycle. I'm going to go through and just cut the connections off and redo them my way. And when you see a wire connection like this, you know it's a good one. Especially if I did it. And like I said, I'm not the GOAT. I had an old-timer, old alcoholic buddy of mine. Mr. Charlie showed me how to do this years ago. And he could like take apart a circuit board and, you know, for your computer and put new parts in it. He was really good at this. It's very simple. Just take your time. Thanks for watching.